Anita, Hale,
Here.
Heltman,
Here.
Candela,
Here.
Kwan, here, Lozada,
Here.
Sullivan.
Here. Okay, please unmute yourselves and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now open the floor to public comments on agenda items. Do we have any public comments on agenda items this evening? If you have a public comment, please feel free to type that into the Q&A box and we will read that into the meeting for you. And I'll wait a minute or two to give people an opportunity to do that if they'd like. Okay, it does not look like we have any public comments, so we will proceed on to presentations.
All right, thank you. We have one presentation this evening, and it will be facilitated by our principals to give a quick update on how facilitated distance learning is going, enrollment, some of the social emotional connections and opportunities that our students have, and then Mr. Peterson and Mr. Dole will give an update on our newly formed district-wide social emotional learning committee. So Mr. Hansen, can I ask you to just share your screen and project the slideshow, please?
We're all set.
All right, and then I'll turn it over. I believe Dr. Fredericks, you're up first.
Absolutely. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to report that we currently have 23 students in our Diamond Lake School facilitated distance learning program. Out of those students, the vast majority are kindergartners, but they are doing really well. We have put some procedures in place to make sure all the kids get a break at the same time, which has been really helped, and everyone's been just doing a nice job, and it's really helped many of our families. Just a little bit about what's going on with social emotional learning at Diamond Lake School. We have quite a few things going on. In the morning, our students start with our morning meeting, and that's a chance for them to talk together and to really begin the day and set the tone for learning. Then later in the day, every day, we have social emotional learning time, which is merging our zones of regulation program that teaches kids how to cope and understand their behaviors, with our second step program, which teaches kids a little bit more in depth of strategies to use with various aspects of emotional learning. And then finally, at the end of the day, we use our PM wrap-up time to focus on PBS activities. So just some other connections and exciting things we're doing at Diamond Lake is, if you check out our webpage, we have all kinds of things that we're offering parents that they can do with students. Mr. Preble?
Thank you, Dr. Frederick. So over at the intermediate school, we share the FDLA environment with the middle school. So we currently have 14 students enrolled in the program. The majority of those are third graders, and we're sprinkling in a couple of fourth graders and a few fifth graders. But things are going well there. We have, since our last meeting, have expanded and utilize the entire innovation center to be the hub for our learners, and it seems to be going very well. And I'm sure Mr. Cunningham will speak to that in a few minutes. But as far as what we're doing building wide and throughout the school with our students, we facilitate morning meetings where we house our SEL content, and one of our primary resources for that is the second step program. So we do that between 8 and 9 every single morning, synchronously and asynchronously. But we also have our PBIS committee has been working pretty hard to do some of the things that we would normally do while we're here in person. It's environment training, it's building the framework for what we're teaching in our SEL, and we're going to start expanding on that. But then as far as students go, the opportunities that we have for them after school, we have launched our student council program. So that's underway. And we also have just begun this week our girls club, which also houses Girls on the Run. So that's open to girls in all 3 grade levels. So there's opportunities for them to participate in some group activities after school. Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Preble. Again, as Mr. Preble alluded to earlier, that we are sharing the space in the Innovation Center right now for facilitated distance learning, which has been really positive. We've been able to add 5 students since we last spoke. So that means we have 14 in the Innovation Center, and then an additional 6 that are working with Ms. Rudd as well, a little bit off of the Innovation Center. So it's been great to be able to use the space that we have at West Oak for some of the individualized programming needs, whether it be that we have speech and our social workers on site for that group certain days of the week. Additionally, when students need to break out for any kind of choir, band, fuse, different specials, PE, we have the sanitized spaces for them to be able to participate to some degree in those. So that's been great to have that element available for us. In terms of SEL, I'll let Mr. Dole, Mr. Peterson speak to most of that, but we are using theme months. It was Hispanic Heritage Month last month, so we continue to look at different things we'll focus on. We're going to focus on some executive functioning skills and some other things this month, but I'll let Mr. Peterson speak more to the global program. Additionally, we've been able to do some extracurricular activities. We just finished up a cross-country camp that went really well. It ran after school for 2 weeks. We had a number of students that came out, and we offered that for free. And Mr. Dino said that the average improvement was a 3-minute time on their runs per student. So that's phenomenal. And the students worked really hard and made for some great pictures. They were just really excited to be here, and they did a great job with that. So we've also just started our We group, which is an after-school club that focuses on service to others. And they've got some ideas and projects that they're going to start in November. We have our broadcast club that's getting started next week as well. And the We group is with Miss Wysocki, excuse me, I didn't mention that. Broadcast club with Miss Byrne, where we are recording and shooting different videos or photos to promote different things happening in the school. And so she's going to begin to build that group up for the year. She also runs our yearbook club, which writes our yearbook or creates our yearbook. So that's an application process. Students do need to apply online for that. And then she put those out into the Google Classrooms for each grade level. So if families are interested in getting their students involved in that one, they can apply there. Also, tutorial has started after school. Mr. Peterson's done a great job working with Mr. Goldberg and Miss Wysocki, where 4 days a week after school now we are offering after school tutoring. If I may reverse this in my head, Mr. Peterson, so you can always correct me later. But Monday, Wednesday, I believe, is reading, and Tuesday, Thursday is math. So they can get support in those subjects, whether it be tutoring or just doing makeup work or getting extra support and help. And then we have been working with Mr. Hack on National Junior Honor Society to change the bylaws, because we need to account for being in a remote environment with some of the application process and procedures. So we hope to put that information out next month as we kind of work with a couple other schools in the area that have had to do the same thing, so that people can apply to that. And then the Principals Advisory Council, we've just finished up applications for that. It's really, we're taking everyone. It's just a great chance for students at all 3 grade levels during their lunches to meet with myself and Mr. Peterson to talk about some things they can in the school they can make an impact on, and just give students a voice. So a lot of really exciting opportunities in the middle school. Of course, there's so many things that we want to continue to try to find ways to offer and explore, but we're grateful that we've been able to do these things. Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and jump in as we start to talk about the Social Emotional Learning Committee. Mr. Peterson and I have been working on forming this new committee just to continue to focus on SEL across the district. And our goal is really just to unify the practices that are in place in each of the buildings. Each building brings its own unique touches to SEL. So we want to work together collaboratively just to support all of our students and, lean on one another as we continue to develop different ways that we can support this. So the committee we formed between Mr. Peterson and myself are leading it. We also have our community liaison, our instructional technology coach, our 3 building social workers, and then 3 teachers from each building. So we have a total of 16 people, and we've met 2 times so far, just really focused on laying the groundwork and getting to know one another, our backgrounds with SEL, and just starting to focus on some of the things we want to accomplish, which I'll let Mr. Peterson kind of talk on some more of the specifics in regards to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dole, and good evening, everybody. As Mr. Dole said here, this is something that we're looking to bring our district together. When planning for this here, obviously we have a number of people in various roles within the district. Really, what we wanted to do was we wanted to offer a committee that would be able to serve our students as well as our staff, parents, and then also out in the community as well. And we were thinking here in regards to attacking this from 4 areas. One being student and family services, where we would offer here universal, enhanced, and targeted tiers of intervention, where we'd be enhancing that area. Other ways is to improve and enhance teacher skill sets on how to handle SEL issues within the building or within their own classrooms. The next one here is what Mr. Preble and Dr. Fredericks has already alluded to, is that second step program, where that will be the bulk of our work, and we'll be focusing on a variety of areas, pre-K through 8th grade, in regards to self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and then responsible decision-making. So a lot involved in this, and we are excited. The final area is our staff social-emotional health. So we realize that we cannot function to our best ability if we are not taking care of ourselves as well. And that's something that we are going to explore some more. So, as Mr. Dole said, we've met twice. I'm very excited with our group. It seems like we have an excellent group of educators coming together to help us kind of provide some uniformity within our district. And we look forward to giving you updates in the future on our progress.
Thank you, everybody. This is an opportunity for the board to ask any questions, or if there's any comments. We just wanted to share with you, almost 6 weeks into facilitated distance learning, and we had expressed not only to you, but to our community that social emotional learning was going to be a priority and a goal. So we just wanted to kind of highlight to you some of the things that are going on and how we're also elevating it to a district level and making it a district priority by having the committee. So thank you, principals. Thank you, Mr. Dole and Mr. Peterson. So any questions from our board?
Hey, I have a couple of questions. First of all, congratulations. It sounds like it's been a very successful program. I'll start with the first one. Any challenges? Anything that you learned from day 1 to the current day?
Mr. Dole, would you like to take this first, or I could go?
Is it referring to, I just want to be clear, Mr. Lozada, is that for distance learning, or are you talking about the SEL committee, or both?
No, the facilitated distant learning program, the entire program. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's probably different for all 3 schools. I think we've learned that remote learning is dramatically different for all 3. So thankfully we had a lot of really nice training throughout the summer for staff to really identify and teach in a way that's effective remotely. But as teachers have kind of balanced pacing of lessons and content, that's been a big piece. And all students engaging has been that we've been very successful with it, but that's been a thing right away, is to figure out how we make sure students feel comfortable asking questions, advocating for themselves. They may not be used to ever writing an email to a teacher before. So training them on how to do that and how you communicate with one another in a totally different platform, how you organize yourself. Those have been different skills at the middle school level we've worked on. And again, I know it's different from talking to Mr. Preble and Dr. Fredericks. It's different at all 3 buildings.
I would agree with that. I think at the intermediate level, two of the biggest obstacles right off the bat are, some of the navigational talents of our students, especially our younger ones, our third graders coming in, trying to navigate through the technology. And we're getting so much better now, but it just right off the beginning, our teachers were set to go full speed, and understanding that our students weren't able to quite navigate the Google Classroom or the meetings and where to click and do all those things. And it slowed some things down, but we're back into a better rhythm now. And the other piece of it is just that connection piece. It's much easier when you're a teacher to be in a classroom with a student and just get that sense of whether they're not getting something or something's bothering them, or even if there's something to celebrate there. You lose some of that emotional connection through the screen, and being able to have that just in person feel the vibe of your classroom. And we obviously experience the same thing through these meetings ourselves as staff, but those, I would say those are the two biggest obstacles that we're working through right now.
I think at Diamond Lake School, one of the reasons I'm very appreciative that we've had kids in our building is because it allowed us to have kind of a taste of what our families are experiencing. So if our learning associates who are supervising the kids in facilitated distance learning didn't know if they should be in PE or not that day, or didn't know what the schedule was, it allowed me to say, okay, hold on, that means our parents don't know. And so I think because of that, it's allowed us to strengthen some of those details. I think there's more celebrations, to be honest, than the challenges. The challenges are, what we all face in terms of technology, and it's not a normal situation, and it's unusual for children to have to be distant. So those are things that we've worked through. But overall, I think things are going really well. And I think that the parents have had challenges, not just with facilitated, but understanding what their role is with this. So we are working on that clarification with them. So we've got some 3-year-olds that are really great colors at this point, and some kids who are maxing out on their assessments. So we're working with the community to let them know that it's okay if their kids don't know every answer. So, but overall, I think it's going well.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a question, or I have a couple questions. Mr. Cunningham talked about the executive functioning skills, and that's something that I'm just realizing how terrible I am with it. And so it must be genetic, because my kids are also pretty bad with it. So I'm curious if any of the younger grades have kind of looked into that as well. I'm not an expert on it or anything like that, but just in how to help students be more organized. And
yes, absolutely. At Diamond Lake School, we certainly understand that is challenging. So we have color-coded folders and things like that. And that's something that we've noticed that our families do need assistance with. So one of our teachers is going to be putting on some videos. So again, keep watching our website. And one of the topics is how to help your child get organized, where to put their materials so they're ready to go. So it is interesting that when we're in the school, we have cubbies for them and everything is color coded, and we have schedules, and it is very different in the home. So that is something that we are noticing as well, and we are planning to address as we continue on.
Yeah, I would agree with that at the intermediate level. So what we'd like to do is, as far as adapting to that color-coded system, I think is the way to go. So we're looking at the best ways to do that. And now with the remote problem, this is something I think we all see, no matter who our kids are. I have a daughter in high school, a daughter in middle school, and they're both worse than their little brother who's in preschool as far as executive functioning. So I totally understand that genetic piece to it. So looking at some best practices, we have some tips and tricks that are in our Google Classrooms, but that's not the same as training children to do that in person. So once we not that I want to put it off until we get back in person. But once we get back in person, we really want to focus on the best way to start building up that capacity of the executive function within our kids, just so that they can keep building on what they've learned at Diamond Lake and then translate that into the middle school when they get there. Because when they get to middle school and they're changing classes all the time, that's where you see a lot of this in person take place, the struggles take place. So if we can help bridge that gap, that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, and I'll say that at the middle school level, again, we're fortunate with the students being a little bit older, we can be a little bit more abstract in our instructions, but we will use Google Classroom to, in some ways, organize for them, including the names. But we were already having, across all 3 schools, some really good discussions about organization systems and how we can be uniform about that. And we had begun to kind of some of the initial planning of it. To be honest, the problem was distance learning changes a little bit of it, because usually a lot of our experience is how you do that physically first, and how you design that. But it is a major need for students and adults, and what we need for executive functioning. So it's amazing when you suddenly tell, even though our kids are older, you tell an 11-year-old you need to organize yourself. That's a lot. And so teachers will do as much as we can to help kind of tee that up. But that definitely was a recognition and a need where we've had those. Actually, I think we're talking about even today, some different organizational systems to pursue moving forward uniformly. And there's some good ones out there.
Thank you so much. And then right before I came here, I saw like a memo from Lake County, like their health department, talking about going fully virtual. And I was
That's on the agenda, Nikki, for this evening, under others.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we can talk about it later. That's all I have.
I have one. I was just wondering how our technology is holding up. How's the hardware holding up? How's the systems holding up? Any challenges with that, or is everything running smoothly?
So we had our last technology learning night a few weeks ago. Didn't have a lot of Q&A involved, which is, I see it as a positive sign, because that means that things are kind of slowing down. Everybody's getting used to the hardware and the platforms as common foundational resources for remote learning. Connecting with my team on a weekly basis on our parent technology tickets. Every once in a while you get something, and then the device gets resolved immediately. But I think a lot of times we're getting used to the formats. It's been several months, but especially as we started up the school year with new devices, with new students, a lot of our students and our families are getting used to the platforms, tricks, and Google is continuously making updates as well. So it's our common platform, which has been beneficial, especially for Google Meet virtually meetings. So everything so far is running very smooth. But as we always are going to make sure that our families are supported, our students are supported, our staff are supported when it comes to technology.
That's great. Thank you.
I have a question. Have we solicited feedback from parents on technology? I know I saw the survey that was on topics for the technology nights, but on technology or just how distance learning is going at this point in the year. I know that things are, I would say, markedly different from how they were in the spring. And I know we had gotten feedback from parents about their experience then, but I just wondered if we had asked for any feedback at this point, or if we had plans to do so.
Yeah, we'll seek out another feedback regarding, I think technology will be part of it, but I think it might be the whole remote learning experience. But with recent surveys that have happened, we just want to align that survey to our families so they're not getting
sure
too many at the same time.
Sure.
Yes, and I agree. And support what Mr. Hansen is saying. We're looking at probably gaining, looking ahead, what are plans for January? What are your intentions as a family to return? If we do have an in-person or a hybrid model, how is technology working for you? Like you said, strengths, challenges, opportunities that we have in distance learning and even in facilitated distance learning, and give families, a chance to give us some feedback and how we can, reflect on that feedback and improve.
Great. Did anyone have any other questions or comments?
I have one. At this point in the trimester, can each of the three buildings talk about attendance, how we're doing? If there's any kind of trends that you see in attendance patterns?
Sure, I can jump in with that. We've been very, very pleased with our attendance. Overall, we are finding that our students are logging on and doing what they need to be doing. We have a few families that are definitely outliers who are a little bit more challenging with getting them on and going, but I am working with the classroom teachers as well as Daisy Carrera to find ways to motivate those families. Since we changed the afternoon to have almost an open-ended PM attendance slot for families, we've had a lot of positive feedback about that so that students have a little bit more flexibility to get their assignments done. But I would say things are very positive in terms of the number of students who are logging on every day. Mr. Preble?
Yeah, I would echo that. I think we're overall pleased with our attendance. We initiated an internal attendance piece that our teachers throughout the day, throughout the period, look at student engagement and whether they're on the call and not engaging, on the call engaging, or any of those things. And we're making those contacts with families. We have contact logs started so that we're able to track between whether you're in a homeroom setting as one of the specials, or even if your child is receiving a service of some type. Those teachers have capability of entering those contacts in there too, and viewing where the attendance is and or I should say any lack of attendance. And we're reaching out and making those contacts with families. And that has yielded some pretty good results, because if we just went off the power school attendance that we take first thing in the morning, we might have a kiddo on that's there for morning meeting, but then they started disappearing throughout the day. And now that we've been tracking that and making those contacts, it's helped motivate some of our families to say, okay, that's right, they do need to be on all day, and the expectation is to be on all day. So that's been working out pretty well for us.
Yeah, attendance has been incredibly strong. We've been really encouraged by it, and sitting mostly in the 90% for the most part throughout the whole experience. And we run ours period by period, so we have very specific data. So if there's anywhere that we see, we had to educate the sixth graders that we don't do like specials, they're actual classes in the afternoon. So like PE and music and those things you want to take, you need to be at every day. So it took a little bit of practice to kind of help them to understand that particular element. And then if we see anywhere, it's students that will, because we take attendance early first period, otherwise we take it at the end of each period for those that may be coming a few minutes late. Because we do that early first period, we notice we have some students that will sometimes sign on a little bit later, though we do have a 5-minute buffer in there to kind of absorb that. But we're able to kind of measure those that may not be on by second or third period, that those are the families we'll target just to reach out and see what's going on. And we've got our staff communications been very good. So we're able to figure out, we know if a family's not on, our kid's missing a certain period, we've developed a lot of really good connections. And for those families we haven't, Mr. Peterson and myself have gone to those families to see them and just to introduce ourselves and see if we can do support. And so that's been really good and very positive. So with that being said, that like I said, attendance has been very good, and we know which students we're working with that maybe come on later, leave a little early, that we help them stay engaged. Hopefully that answers your question.
Anything else? Okay, then that concludes our presentations for this evening. Thank you. Thank you, principals. Thank you, Mr. Peterson and Mr. Dole. Nice job, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to our business agenda for the evening. We have a couple items for action. The first item for action this evening is the omnibus vote agenda. Items under the omnibus vote agenda are considered routine and or non-controversial and will be approved by one motion. If anyone, board member, staff, administrator, or citizen wishes to have a separate vote on any items, that item or items will be pulled from the omnibus vote agenda and voted on separately. Be it resolved that the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the omnibus vote agenda items A through E as listed. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Was that Nikki? Second? Yes, okay. Lozada,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Armenta, Hale,
Yes.
Hauptman,
Yes.
Candela,
Yes.
Kwan, yes.
Okay. Moving on to our second item for action. And that is a personnel item. Be it resolved, the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the personnel items as depicted on the agenda. We have one new hire and we have 3 resignations. May I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
Candela,
Yes.
Lozada,
Yes.
Armenta, Hale,
Yes.
Hauptman,
Yes.
Kwan, yes. Sullivan. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay.
That concludes the business agenda for this evening. We will now move on to board discussion. So the one item that we have under board discussion is the IASB resolutions. I think as everyone remembers, typically the delegates, which would be one person from each school district, would vote on these resolutions at the annual conference. But because the annual conference is virtual this year and it's on a Friday only, they are having the delegates vote on November 14th. And so as a result, this is the only board meeting we have between now and then. So we are going to go through the resolutions and discuss, and if we all feel comfortable, then we will, take a vote as how we would like our board to vote at the delegate assembly on the 14th. If we still have questions, they are doing 2 webinars on, one is tomorrow and one is November 5th. And so if for some reason we're still, not sure how we would like to vote, we can always have a follow-up board meeting to continue our discussion. But I think that most of these are pretty straightforward. They're not as seemingly controversial as they sometimes have been in the past. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to kind of review and go through them. I think we will just start on the first resolution. So if you can scroll through that in your packet and find that. The first resolution is the loan program. I'm going to read that out loud, and then the recommendation from the committee is to not adopt this. So the submitted resolution language is, be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall request that the state of Illinois establish a low-cost loan program for public school districts. This program will allow local dollars to flow more directly to students while providing relief to local taxpayers. The committee is recommending not to adopt it because they don't understand, they're not sure exactly where the funding would come from. And they're questioning how this would pay for costs that the state should be funding themselves for schools. So I guess that is kind of the counter argument to the resolution. Does anyone have any discussion or any comments they would like to share on this?
Yeah, well, the way I read it, it's if the state isn't in a position to give a district money, then why should we be looking for a loan from the state?
Right.
It just sort of seemed off.
Eric, do you have any input on that? I mean, it seems like I don't know enough about the finances necessarily to understand it, but it seems like it's like a way of going around the voters to like usurp the bond type of referendum power that the voters have.
Yeah, no, I think Mr. Hoffman put it well. I've looked into this a little bit. I'm no expert by their legislation they're proposing, but I just don't entirely know where this money's coming from and where it's, what the payback looks like and things like that. So it does seem like a a way to go around, whether it's to go around voter approval or something along that nature. And we don't really want to get in that business, I don't think.
So I'll jump in on, I mean, I'm good with their recommendation of no,
Same.
but I'm willing, you know, but we can discuss if other folks want to discuss.
No, I agree as well. I think one of the other things that the committee is advocating is that the state do its part to fund, so we don't have to borrow.
Right. No, exactly. Does anyone, so it sounds like we have kind of a consensus to vote no and recommend that this is not adopted. Does anyone disagree with that? Or have anything else they want to add? No? Okay. So then I will put that down as a no vote. The next resolution is on gun storage. Again, this was recommended not to be adopted. The resolution is, be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall support and advocate for legislation which strengthens child-safe gun storage laws in the state of Illinois, requiring gun owners to store firearms, whether they are loaded or unloaded, in a securely locked container if a person under the age of 18 is likely to gain access to the weapon without permission. Basically, the committee is recommending not to adopt that because this goes outside of lobbying for issues that happen directly inside of the school district, and instead would be lobbying for things that happen within the home.
So
Go ahead.
I'm totally for this proposal, actually. I think that, you know, unsecured guns impact, you know, the safety and the well-being of students in the classroom, regardless of where or how they get the guns. But yeah, I'm definitely in favor of this.
I agree with Nikki. I think I would be in favor of the resolution. I mean, I'm somewhat biased on this one, but I think that their recommendation was somewhat weak. That just because the actual lock and storage doesn't occur on school property, that then we shouldn't be spending any time and effort against it. I think the rationale was reasonably solid. And you know, and somewhat school focused at least.
Sure.
Yep, for me, the fact that they made mention here, not sure what the connection is, but I would agree with what's been said already. Anything that we can do to safeguard guns. I'm not against guns, but I certainly am for safeguarding them because of the statistics and the reachability and so forth.
Does anyone else have a comment? Or question? No. Do we want to take a poll? Who would vote in favor? We'll just kind of go. I think John and Nikki, we know your votes. Do the rest of you want to chime in? Jose, you made yourself clear as well.
Right.
I'm okay with supporting what John, Nikki, and Jose are saying.
Okay.
I feel the same.
Okay. I do as well. So we will vote yes on that resolution. Okay, the next resolution is school report card. The resolution reads, be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall support legislation that would direct the Illinois State Board of Education to prepare and disclose all available school report card data for the current academic year by June 1st of that year. They're recommending not to adopt it, but their reasoning, which personally I think makes sense, is that they're recommending that IASB staff and committee members agree to continue to work to address this issue, because they're saying that not all of the data would be ready in time for that June 1st deadline. But I think just with our own experience in our own district, we can see how difficult it is for our leadership team and our teachers to make decisions about student placement and about curriculum when we don't have the data until, partially through the next school year. So it is a frustrating situation to not be able to have those data points that would help make decisions about, our students.
I would also say that given what I call the age of COVID, that really complicates how we're measuring our students. And so it adds further delays and complication to the overall strategy. You're trying to gauge the students. So I would, at this point, have to vote against it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the recommendation not to adopt.
Anyone else have a comment? No? Okay. Do you want to share how you would vote? I would recommend not to adopt. It sounds like John would as well, and Jose would as well.
Right.
Nicole or Margaret or Dave?
Yeah,
I'm okay with that recommendation.
Okay.
Yes, same.
Nicole, we cut you off, but.
Oh no, I'm on board with that.
Okay, great. Moving on to resolution 4, pre-K teacher licensure. This one, it looks like they are recommending substitute language for the resolution. So okay, the submitting I can't tell from this if they're only presenting the substitute language for the meeting or if they're going to present the original language. Because the committee approved substitute language. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I didn't feel strongly either way. I mean, it's hard to strike down things that ask for, reasonable standards, but but when it tells you that the standards are sort of inflexible with dictating certain classes, then okay, if the experts say that, then fair enough. I mean,
Wait, Joy.
I would go with the right recommendation.
Joy, were you asking whether the committee is seeking to replace the language and yet still recommends not adopting?
So it looks like my take on this, yes, essentially, my take on this is it seems like the committee would recommend their replacement language, which is, be it resolved that the IASB shall support initiatives in teacher preparation programming that prepare teachers to be trained in scientifically proven methods of reading instruction that promote student literacy, as opposed to the initial language, which was much more limiting. And so, and what did they say? It was
much more specific and identified specific things, which,
yeah.
Classes.
And those things might change over time. And I
Right.
think that's probably part of the rationale of the committee here, is that if we make this a more general statement, then it's flexible with time.
Sure. So
but the question is, do we support the resolution as stated, not the replacement language.
I believe so. I just can't tell from this what they're going to present at the delegate assembly meeting.
So on the question of do we support the resolution as stated by the submitting district, I would say no.
Right.
That we adhere to the recommendation of the committee in this case. But to my understanding here, they're not asking whether or not we support their revised language.
I don't think so. I'm just not sure that when they have the tomorrow and on November 5th, they're having like the discussion meetings, and sometimes they make changes during those meetings. So I'm just wondering if they will decide to substitute the language. So I guess what I'm asking is, could we just vote on both pieces? Could we vote on the original language, and could we vote on the replacement language so that we're prepared either way? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No,
So,
yes, yeah.
No, yes.
Agreed.
Yeah, yes.
I would agree with that. Does anyone else feel differently? Okay, then we will have no for the original and yes for the substitute if that comes in front of us. Moving on to resolution 5, teacher shortage. This is recommended that it be adopted. Be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall support efforts to direct the Illinois State Board of Education to expand the issuance of provisional teacher licenses to all curricular areas. Does anyone have any points for discussion or comments?
Seemed reasonable, particularly when they gave the reason for the need for rural districts.
Yeah.
Sounded like their rationale, so they recommend to not adopt it. And it sounds like their rationale is that they already have these, what's the word? Like that they already have like some flexibility in,
This one is, they are recommending to adopt it. There's another resolution with similar language that I think that they recommend not to, because I if I'm remembering correctly, because it was similar to this one.
okay.
Anyone else have a comment? Okay, can we take a quick vote? I would recommend to adopt it. How does everyone else feel? Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
I'm seeing nods from everyone. Okay. Okay. Going pretty fast. Okay. Next resolution is e-learning on election day. This is recommended to be adopted. It says, be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall support and encourage legislation that would allow school districts to use an e-learning day or remote learning day in lieu of closing a school or the district on election day during a public health response requiring use of a school, or on any other day during which a school is mandated to be used for public function during school hours. So I thought this made a lot of sense, and I think that they're points that, you know, schools can be kind of a gathering place within a community. And so if you're having a health clinic, or if you're, you know, doing things beyond just voting, if the building has to close, that shouldn't mean that we lose a day necessarily of learning, especially since, you know, virtually every school has been able to figure out how to put remote learning into place for their students. So I thought this made sense to adopt.
I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Yes, everyone. Okay.
Yes.
That, Nikki, I like the thumbs up. That's helpful. Sometimes it's hard for me to see the tiny square. Okay. The next resolution is local control pandemic. And there's 2 of these, and they're recommending that the first one be adopted and the second one not. So the first one says, be it resolved that the Illinois Association of School Boards shall encourage members of U.S. Congress, the Illinois General Assembly, related administrative agencies, and state and federal courts to take a regional approach in response to national health emergencies. The explanation for this is their concern that there are differences in the prevalence of COVID cases in areas of the state compared to Chicago, and yet all areas of the state were required to close despite those differences. And the IASB has historically supported local control with a position statement named as such since 1976, and agrees that a standalone position for this specific situation was warranted. My only question here is, I think some of the rationale seems dated, because since Illinois was further broken up into different areas, it seems like there was more thought being put into how the rural counties and communities were different from Chicago, and how, other suburban communities were different from Chicago, and these areas are being treated distinctly. So when I read this, I just didn't know that it was still necessary.
My question, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just have a language question, because the resolution doesn't actually talk specifically about schools at all. It is actually just encouraging Congress, the Illinois Assembly, state and federal courts to take a regional approach to a national health emergency. So what does this actually have to do with schools? It doesn't actually address like mandating school closures or on a local level, right?
Right. That's not the link. Yeah, you're 100% correct. The resolution 8, which they're recommending to not adopt, was the resolution that specifically addressed schools.
I find that perplexing because it seems like 8 is a much better worded resolution than 7. And, it's kind of interesting because on the gun resolution, the committee used the rationale that it has nothing to do with
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The concern that I would have about 8, though, is it seems to be taking not just the general position that it should be under local control to decide whether the schools are open or not, but it uses the words advocate for schools to open back up.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the IASB should necessarily advocate for schools to open back up. I'm fine with advocating for local control of those decisions based on sound data. I think that there's there's a slightly different agenda in resolution 8 than I would be comfortable with.
Yes, I can see that. I see that. But at least it's related to
and I see that.
Mm-hmm.
I see that point. What you were saying, and I wonder if they're just and I guess you can't imply something in a resolution, but that resolution 7, are they making an assumption here that?
No, I agree. I think there's more to their recommendation, do not recommend, than just it being a duplicate.
Yeah.
Julie, I agree with your comments about number 7, though. And we already kind of have the states already broken up into those different areas. So it does seem like they've already kind of done this. So
that was my feeling. I just don't understand the rationale on this, because I don't remember the exact timeline of the resolution, the committee report, but it didn't come out that long ago. And so any of the changes made within the state would have already occurred. So I just don't understand the rationale there.
And I think this would be a good place for replacement language suggestion for the, for the IASB to make some combination of those two that is more appropriately,
It almost seems like
this in schools.
Is it so much that it was prompted by the impact on schools, or was it prompted by the impact on things beyond schools? Because it seems that a lot of the rural counties were pushing very, very hard to open up sooner than other sort of collar counties in Chicago.
Mhm.
And this language seems similar, seems along those lines.
Mhm.
And
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
no, I'm just saying it seems like there's sort of more, anyway.
No, I agree with you.
Seems there's more to it.
I agree with you. And I mean, if you look at the district rationale is very much tied to schools, whether school closing is appropriate. Whereas the resolution committee rationale is really talking about
Anything.
just, any closure requirements and restrictions. So to me, to Margaret's point, this rationale seems to go beyond schools and school districts.
Well, I'm a no on both, so.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a no as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that our lobbying dollars need to be spent on this purpose.
That's a good point. So I would agree that we can
I
vote
would
no
agree
on
with
both.
that too. Jose?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I had a hard time with this one, and thanks, Margaret, for that observation, because I took it initially as is someone trying to ensure that we have an ordinance that's been declared by a higher level that then we can use as a district to say we cannot open because, and we already have that in play, especially as our as we've been, divvied up in Illinois, that if the governor says we have to go to phase whatever and shut down, that we have that as a mandate. But then if we're released to a higher level, and then we still maintain the option of keeping, like we've done, opening our schools for either the hybrid model or no distance learning or in-school learning, whichever one, we still have that independence to do that. So I was really confused to try to determine what are they trying to say here? Are they just trying to have an excuse to say, this is the governing body that will tell you what to do at the highest level, which already exists. So I just couldn't quite understand where they were coming from. But like I said, I think your observations are spot on and really helped me to understand. With number 8, there's so many little things inherent here that it's so hard to try to understand where they were coming from to really validate what they're proposing. So I would agree. I would say I would stay away from both of these.
Okay. Does anyone feel differently on 8? Would you vote yes on 8? No.
No.
No. Okay. Okay, well, that gets us through the resolutions. We just have the reaffirmation of positions, and I think they are all recommended to be adopted. We can go through them really quickly, and if anyone feels strongly to vote against them, please speak up. The first reaffirmation of positions is for the renewal of charters. The Illinois Association of School Boards shall urge adoption of legislation that allows for the participation of host school district in the charter school renewal for state authorized charter schools. So that allows the school district where the charter school is located to participate in that renewal process and provide data and information there. So they are voting to adopt that and to reaffirm that. Thumbs up. I like the thumbs up. Okay, thumbs up. Everyone, thumbs up.
Yep.
Nikki, you fell off my screen. Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. So the second one is the charter schools at-risk students. The Illinois Association of School Boards shall urge the adoption of legislation that defines the special expectations of state-authorized charter schools to educate at-risk students, including the requirement that the state-authorized charter schools programs and operations be specifically designed to attract and service at-risk students, and that the state-authorized charter school be required to report to the public its progress in achieving these expectations. So this would reaffirm the current position as statement. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up. Sorry, I'm toggling between screens, so I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss any. If you have a thumb down, let me know. And then the last statement is state authorized charter school funding. And that is the Illinois Association of School Boards shall urge the adoption of legislation which would create a new methodology for the funding of state authorized charter schools, which would not have a negative financial impact on the host district, particularly in the spirit of evidence-based funding. With respect to state authorized virtual charter schools, further limit the withholding of state funds from host districts in proportion to the per pupil expenditure used for building maintenance, classroom supplies, transportation, safety and security, and all other costs unique to brick and mortar schools. For all state authorized charter schools, require that proof of continuing enrollment and attendance be submitted quarterly with prorated refunds to the host district upon withdrawal of students from the charter school. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up. Okay, awesome. So those are those three statements. And then there are new belief statements. There is just one, and it's on equity. And that's recommended to be adopted. It says the Illinois Association of School Boards urges its member districts and the leadership of member districts to integrate the principles of equity and inclusion in school curriculum, policies, programs, and operations, ensuring every student is welcomed and supported in a respectful learning environment. I would think we would wholeheartedly support that. So, okay. So that concludes our discussion. The other parts of the packet here are just changes that they're making to the position statements, and then all of the position statements or belief statements in total. So we don't need to go through the rest of those. But that was easy. Like I said, I will attend the delegate meeting on November 14th and vote on those for us. And I will report back with follow-up information at our November board meeting.
Thank you, Joy.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'll let you know if anything interesting comes up during the discussion webinars too. So that wraps up board discussion. We have no freedom of information requests. We have a whole bunch of notices and communications. So Bob and I will let you go through most of those, I think.
Sure. And the majority of them are, for information only. I know the most recent one that I know Mrs. Sullivan brought up and that that I'm sure we want to discuss a little bit is the Lake County Health Department latest report. But the summative designation letter, your first attachment, is the letter from the Illinois State Board of Education. And it's basically saying that all three of our schools are commendable. They reverted back to our 2019 designation since we did not do state assessments last spring. So it's just more or less of a notification, and then that'll show up on the website for the Illinois Interactive School Report Card. And that is how we are designated with Illinois State Board of Education. How we'll receive our funding is that we have a commendable status for all three schools. So that's good news. That means our students, 18 months ago, were making adequate yearly progress. The second attachments are just the IASB certificate that we have, paid our dues for the year and that we are a member district, and then a cover letter to show all the benefits that we have for being a member district in the Illinois Association of School Boards. So those are just for your reference. This week, IPA, which is the Illinois Principals Association, has designated this to be Principal Appreciation Week. So we have been, Mr. Hanson, on behalf of our district, has been posting every day on social media and on our website something to celebrate each one of our principals. And that's just the proclamation that we are following as a district. That is Principals Day on Thursday, October 22nd. The board meeting calendar always is there for your review. And just a reminder that the November 3rd meeting is canceled due to the federal holiday being Election Day, and that we will have one board meeting in November, and that's on Tuesday, November 17th. And then our last attachment is from Lake County, the health department that just came out earlier this afternoon. If you would like to look at it, saying that basically the health department is saying that substantial community transmission of COVID-19 in Lake County for the past 7 consecutive days with rates of new cases that we haven't seen since spring. So the executive director is saying that we work closely with our school superintendents to continue giving us data, which they do on a daily basis. The decision is now up to our, independent school districts and how they want to continue with whatever, non-remote learning model. And we know that some of our school districts in Lake County, very few of them are doing, hybrid, or are thinking of coming back to hybrid, or doing some type of in-person learning. So I've gotten communication from colleagues that they're, some are waiting depending on how many students they have. Some are, closing and going back to full remote. As you heard today, and I'm going to kind of leave this up for discussion. We have about 23 students at Diamond Lake that are in facilitated distance learning. We have about 33 students in the West Oak campus, 14 at the intermediate school, and 19 at the middle school in facilitated distance learning. And just a reminder to the board, as well as to our audience tonight, that facilitate, and I know that this was a question in the chat of, how are the students decided to come to school? And initially, back when we started and we decided that we were going to be fully remote, that a application was sent out. So these are based on need or hardship. And what we mean by need is a childcare need. And then we just expanded 2 weeks ago and added some more students when things were going well, and positivity rates were kind of were stabilized. So you got feedback from the principals of how well things are going. I think as a district leadership team, we briefly discussed this morning before the communication went out, that we're going to continue to watch closely. We have a small enough amount of students that come in, and I just asked principals what their adult to student ratio is. So we could go back. Right now, we're in the library at West Oak campus. Students are appropriately socially distanced apart. Everyone was wearing masks. Mr. Rogers works closely with the maintenance departments to make sure that things are sanitized and clean according to CDC guidelines. So, we have a very small adult to student ratio. So if the board would like to discuss it, I welcome feedback. And if DLT would like to add anything, like I said, we were going to continue to watch, see how it goes. We have small numbers. And if they continue to escalate, then we can, contact those families and go back to remote learning very easily.
So Dr. Sharma-Lewis, just to clarify, you're saying that although we have this notification here, we're going to remain as is with the existing in-classroom programs for the 56 students. Is that correct?
Yes. I think I speak for the district leadership team. I think we feel confident in what we're doing. I feel like we're servicing students that are definitely at risk and are at need for their family situation. I think we can put the safety protocols in place to keep students safe as well as our staff safe. So I'm thinking yes for right now. I mean, principals, please, and Mr. Rogers, anybody, feel free to comment. But I'm saying yes for right now, and then we could just continue to watch those numbers and see.
Sure.
We haven't had, and we've communicated out when there has been, a case or symptoms that we have to notify people, but it has been limited.
Okay, and before, welcome the comments, but before you guys comment, I just want to say one thing, and again, given the success that you guys have had, and thanks, Dr. Sharma Lewis, for saying what you said about expanding about 2 weeks ago. And so I see the overall success, the ability, the opportunity to expand that you provided 2 weeks ago. I could only see that maybe parents may be interested, having heard that. So how do we balance then the notification we just got today? I agree, staying as is with the success that you've experienced is good, but maybe, this notice just says maybe we should not open for new enrollment or additional enrollment for a couple of weeks more, and not just, at a 2-week interval. So, but again, I want to maintain the success, but I certainly welcome your feedback. And I agree with you, by the way.
I think I agree with that too, that, we probably will not expand until, we get different data and from Lake County. We're kind of going to stay status quo. It would have been nice, to continue to grow the program. And that was our initial goal, but I don't think we can at this time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's a really tough, there's not like an easy answer for it. Seems like, we're helping students that really need help and might not be able to even do school if they didn't have this. But I guess my question would be like, what would trigger us to shut that facilitated learning down? I mean, it seems like this letter from the county is pretty, I don't know. It seems like it's pretty specific, or it seems like it's like pushing us to do that. So I guess my question would be like, what would trigger it? Would just be like a COVID outbreak at our school, or would it be like a certain percentage of like number of positivity rates, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't know if I have, a crystal ball to answer that specific thing. And I certainly wouldn't want to get it to, if there's a huge outbreak, I don't want to get to that point.
Right.
Like I said, I think that our principals work really closely with our staff that are here. They monitor the facilitated distance learning very closely, being visible, being on site. And I think just looking at their feedback on saying, okay, do we have to, like we talked earlier, like at West Oak campus, we're using the Innovation Center and all the students are there. Maybe we take smaller groups and go back into the classrooms like we were before we expanded a few weeks ago. So we could do something like that. We could spread out the lunch periods even more so. We can give families the option too. Here's the situation that we have. We're going to remain open. Is this something that you feel comfortable that you want to continue to have your child come to school? And possibly leave it up to them. And I think like I said, we just watch it on a daily basis as we have been, communicate with, the district leadership team, listen to their feedback. And if it's something that we, it's not safe for our staff and students, then we need to make some different decisions, and then we'll communicate those out accordingly.
For the families that are participating in the facilitated learning, are you going to send a communication out about the public health department data and just, let them know that we're planning on remaining open, but if they would like to transition, back to just virtual learning at home, that they can do that?
I was going to ask tomorrow, based on this current information, principals, how would we like to proceed? Do we want to restructure things physically, go back into classroom or go back into smaller spaces and reorganize staff so they're with smaller groups? So I think once we have that plan in place, then we can communicate exactly what you said, Joy, of asking families if they want to continue once we have a better idea of the plan and what it looks like physically in each building.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just think that we're gonna, this came out late this afternoon, and I know that a number of neighboring districts have called emergency board meetings to address it this evening or during this week. So I just think we'll hear more about it in the community, and I want to make sure that we're proactive with communicating out, our position to families, especially since I know a lot of these families, you know, childcare would be an issue, and I never want to put someone in a situation where all of a sudden they have to find childcare for the next day, you know. So just to be able to reassure people as to what our plan is and give them the option, of course, to keep their student home if they feel that that is, you know, the best option for their family.
Exactly. And, you know, I just read something and I believe that you had, you know, our board adopt this already, but if like a decision needed to be made to shut things down, that I would, you know, that I have the board's authority to do that, where I know some superintendents don't. And I know that District 73 just gave their superintendent that authority in a letter. So he's going to be able to monitor that closely. So I appreciate that piece. And I will, you know, let you know as a board and as a community, you know, if we make that decision to go back to fully remote as soon as possible, if that's what we decide.
Okay. Did anyone else have any questions or comments? No. Okay. Then we will move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items this evening? I know I saw one in the chat. I think that Bhavna just chat about how students are selected to be in the distance learning program. Do we have any further questions or comments? Again, please just type that in the Q&A.
And just for the comment that was written in Spanish, I did answer it. And then Ms. Carrera is going to be responding back to that parent in Spanish too.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Daisy. Okay, it does not look like we have any additional comments. So moving on to others, we had a fantastic community leaders presentation. I don't know, Bhavna, if you want to comment on that, but thank you for everyone that participated in that. It was really outstanding. And I think you really showcased very well to our community all of the different improvements, both educationally and, you know, facilities wise that have been made in our district in the last couple of years. And as a board member and as a parent, I was very proud to see everything being highlighted and showcased. It was great.
Thank you. Yes, so I left that there. I know that you, Mrs. Hale, Mr. Houtman, and Mrs. Sullivan were able to join, as well as we had 17 other, you know, community leaders throughout Mundelein. So it was great. It was just a great representation, and we're hoping to expand that and have future ones in person very soon.
That's great. Thank you again. Thank you for everyone that worked on that. And then the last thing under others is the virtual summit. So I know that Lisa had sent out an email asking for anyone that was interested to let her know, and she would go ahead and register you. So if you are interested, please go ahead and do that. You can see who is already registered. I know that previously we had talked about maybe breaking up the sessions, but there really aren't very many this time, and there's not like conflicting sessions. So hopefully if you're available, you can attend all of them. And if not, I would think we'd be able to get, you know, someone from our district attending each of the different sessions. And again, the virtual summit is on November 30th. So it's a Friday from 9 to 3. And I think that concludes open session. So we will now move into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Margaret?
Lozada,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Armenta, Hale,
Yes.
Houtman,
Yes.
Candela,
Yes.
Kwan. Yes.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending. We're going to move into executive session just in a few minutes. We'll give you some commuting time, Dave, and we'll see you shortly. Thank you everyone. Have a good rest of your evening. Happy Principals Day on Thursday. and take care.
Thank you. Mr. Hauptman,